Welcome back to Mike's Gun World. Today let's get back to a little bit more firearm safety. Not safety 101, maybe a little bit higher up. I want to talk about some different cartridge malfunctions when you're at the range. And specifically, I want to talk about misfires, hang fires, squib loads, and then an out of battery jam where a couple of rounds are jammed right here where the slide isn't closed all the way. And that's a they're all fairly dangerous situations, but the out of battery is very, very dangerous. So I would like to talk about those four topics today and try to get you educated on how to handle those situations should they occur when you are at the range. Okay, so for demonstration purposes today, we're going to be using snap caps. And these are the same size and dimensions of a 9mm Luger. We're using my Beretta 92 FS today. You can pick these up just about anywhere. I think you can find them on Amazon.com, Midway USA, Hornady. Any of your suppliers will carry snap caps. These are totally inert. You can put them in a magazine, you can load them into your firearm, you can pull the trigger, nothing happens. But it does give you a sense of what it takes to load a magazine and rack a round or rack a couple of rounds. So that's what we're going to be using for our demonstrations today. So we're safe, there's no ammo in the room. Remember, when you're doing cleaning, gunsmithing, and certainly videos like this, we don't want ammunition around. That's safety 101. So I do use snap caps for these demonstrations, and I certainly use them in the classroom as an NRA instructor. So let's get to our first potential problem that you might run into at the range. That's a misfire. And it's also very, very similar to a hang fire. And I'll explain the difference. Okay, so I've got some rounds loaded up. I think there's 3 or 4 in here. 3. We're at the range. We're at our firing bench. We rack our round. We're ready. Fingers off the trigger until we're, what? On target and ready to pull the trigger, right? Get into firing position. Get on the target. Put our finger on the trigger. Pull it. Click. Nothing happens. Not sure why. Could be a misfire, could be a hang fire. Regardless of what it is, we want to take our finger off the trigger and give it some time before you do anything. What you want to do is just leave the firearm pointed downrange. Keep both hands on the gun. Keep it pointed downrange. Typically they say count to 30. I think that's kind of high, but it's not necessarily unsafe to count that high. If you do count to 30 and nothing happens, you have a misfire on your hands. So the first thing you want to do is ensure that the firearm continues to stay aimed downrange. You want to drop the mag, and then you want to pull the slide back. And the round popped out. Now, before I would do anything else, I'd rack it a couple more times and make sure it's empty. I would lock it open, and I'd want to take a look at that round. And with the misfire, chances are really good that in the primer, you may see a dent. And there could be a couple of reasons why this misfired. From the factory, it rarely happens. It could be a malfunction with the gun. Your firing pin, there could be something wrong with your firing pin, one of the main springs. If you mess around with guns like I do and you've lightened it up too much, it doesn't have enough power to actually hit that primer and ignite it and fire the round. If you're doing your own loads at home like I do myself, there is a possibility that that primer isn't seated right and it's just a misfire. It could be one, it could be the batch. We don't really know. We just know that this particular round did not fire, and that is how you clear it. Now, there's a second more serious situation, And that is very similar to a misfire. We rack our round, we get ready to fire, we put our finger on the trigger, we pull the trigger, click, and a couple seconds later, you get a bang. Now that's called a hang fire. That one could be even more dangerous because for some reason, the primer didn't ignite when the firing pin hit the primer. There was some sort of delay that was caused in there. So one of the reasons we want to count to 30 on a misfire or potential hang fire is in case it is a hang fire and the weapon does discharge on you. Now, if you look around on the internet and you look up hang fires, there's a video of an idiot out there, and I can't say this, I can't say this any more strongly. The guy's an idiot. He's got a 12 gauge shotgun. He's shooting 2-liter bottles of soda up close. He's got 4 or 5 of them lined up. He fires, racks around, boom, shoots 1, racks around, boom, shoots 2, racks around, click. Instead of waiting the 30 seconds, he actually puts the butt of the firearm down, the shotgun down, and he starts to look over the top of the barrel. And guess what? It was a hang fire, and the round went off. He's really lucky to be alive. It hit him in the brim of his cap, and it put a hole in the brim of his cap. He's very lucky it didn't hit him in the head. 2 seconds later, his face would have been over the barrel. I have no idea what the guy was thinking. But the worst thing you ever want to do is anything other than keep that firearm downrange until you have it 100% cleared. If it's a misfire, you have it cleared. If it's a hang fire, it's fired. And even in a hang fire situation, I would drop the magazine. I would clear it before I really did anything else. Okay, the next situation I want to talk about is a squib. What a squib is when a bullet doesn't make it out of the barrel and actually gets stuck inside the barrel. And typically reasons for squibs, it happens with reloaders. It definitely happens to me as a reloader. You don't have enough powder, you don't have enough charge, and really the only thing kicking the bullet down the barrel potentially is the primer igniting. Now, if you shoot enough rounds like I do, you will know when you have a squib round because you will hear an audible explosion from the primer. It's not very loud, and typically it's not enough to actually rack another round. The slide may come back a little bit, and you may be looking at it like, wow, what just happened? I thought I heard something, but a round did not fire. It didn't rack. The worst thing you can do in that situation is just rack another round. Now, you have the potential, if that bullet traveled far enough down the barrel, where a round will actually fit in here. And this could be a catastrophic failure of the firearm if something like this were to happen and you were to pull the trigger with a bullet actually lodged in the barrel. So if you ever get that situation where you pull the trigger, you do hear some kind of a sound, there's a little bit of a, maybe a little bit of a kick on the slide, a little bit of movement in the firearm, the first thing you want to do, you want to drop the magazine, you want to rack it back and hold it open. Now, me personally, I always carry a flashlight with me. And one of the reasons I carry a flashlight with me is maybe I can't quite see down the barrel, and I can't see enough light coming back through the barrel. And the last thing you want to do is actually look down the barrel. So with a flashlight, trusty flashlight, you can always put the flashlight up the front of the barrel and put your finger in battery here and see if you can see the light. Now, if you have a squib load or squib in the barrel, you are not going to see any light here. And guess what? You're going to have to figure out how to get that squib out. So let's get around to how to get a squib out. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, I actually put a 115 grain 9mm round down the barrel, and I'll show you. Let's get the camera down lower here. When I'm shining the flashlight up the barrel, I don't see any light on this end. That's telling me that there's most likely a round stuck in this barrel. Now, I carry a squib rod with me to the range. It's for handguns only. It's not for rifles, it's for handguns. And if I were at the range in this situation, I would break the firearm down. I want to get this thing as broken down as I possibly can. Get the barrel out. Now that the barrel's out, you can actually go ahead and look down there. Oh my God, I can't see through that barrel. Look, it's dark. There's obviously something in there. We look from this end, there it is. I can see that there's a round jammed in there. You know, thank God we didn't try to fire another round. Now, this is going to come out easy because I put it in by hand, but typically you take the squib rod from the front of the barrel to the back of the barrel, and you want to just start tapping it. And then there it is. Your squib round comes out. So that's how to clear a squib rod. Now, to find a squib rod, again, Midway USA, Hornady, Brownells, they all carry them. I don't know, they're 10, 15, 20 bucks, something like that. It's definitely worth having in your range bag. And certainly if you ever get in a situation like this, if you don't have a way to clear it, it's best to break down firearm. In my opinion, go get the range safety officer, tell them what you think is going on. They definitely will have a squib rod and they'll help you take it down. Okay? Let me get this put back together real quick. Okay, let's get on to our fourth and what I would consider a very dangerous, most dangerous situation, and that's an out of battery jam. So let's say we had something like a misfire or hang fire and you didn't follow Mike's advice and dropped the mag, and you go to rack around when there's already a round racked. And what happens now is we potentially have the tip of a bullet leaning on the primer of an unfired cartridge. If this were to, in some way, shape, or form, trigger the primer and we had an out of battery explosion, you would have a lot of shrapnel flying around. So this is an extremely dangerous situation. This is one where you want to be very careful to drop the mag, and as you can see, the mag doesn't want to drop. So very carefully with your hand away from the battery in case something does explode, pull the slide back and lock it. Then you should be able to drop the mag, and that round that was jammed typically will fall right out. And look, it's still stuck half in the magazine, and you can see that there's still a round in here from a previous incident. So we want to try to shake that loose, and it does come loose. But that is an extremely dangerous situation. And recently I read a story, and I think I forget which magazine it was, but I did read a story about a certified instructor who had that exact situation where he had a round out of battery like that, the tip of the bullet actually touching the the cartridge that was in the chamber, in the barrel, and was touching the primer. And as he was trying to work it out, the round actually went off, and both rounds exploded out of battery. He was hurt very badly. It was fortunate that he knew first aid. He was out in the field shooting behind his house. He was able to apply pressure to the wound and get himself to a hospital, which did save his life. But it is that serious. There's going to be shrapnel and parts and pieces flying all over the place from the shell, from the bullets, from the primers. So that's when you want to be extremely, extremely careful. Not that all three aren't a problem, but that last one is very dangerous. I hope it helped. If you like what you saw, remember to hit like, subscribe, leave some comments, ask some questions. I'm always willing to answer questions. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you very soon. Mike's Gun World.